I know, initially when I met you talking about these profound, like recoveries with ketamine treatments. And I know it's
Yeah.
not legal everywhere, but
If, for the most part in the US it is, right? It's
okay.
legal, it's a Schedule 3, so you can get it from your pharmacy. And I think that that's a huge misconception, especially a lot has been kind of sensationalized and then kind of demonized as well. So the media we've gotten on it like in 2020 was really positive. It was like, wow, this is really great for depression. People are doing it to help them with the pandemic, like, manage it. And then as like more high profile individuals started taking it, and then of course like a couple of incidents of death have occurred, is it's not because of the ketamine, it's because of the circumstances around the ketamine.
Cool.
And so ketamine tends to be an incredibly safe drug if taken as prescribed.
Hi everyone, I am Julie Edmonds, your host of Channeled, tapping into the wisdom of your soul.
Hello and welcome to Channel, tapping into the wisdom of your soul. And today we are joined by Dr. Lisa Black. She's a licensed clinical psychologist and the owner and CEO of The Grove Integrative Psychology Institute and also Silva Integrative Health. Her practices support both client healing and practitioner growth, and they're rooted in integrative whole person care, and it's an intentional, inclusive, and accessible. Dr. Black has earned her doctorate in clinical psychology and completed her postdoctoral training at UC San Diego. She's board certified in biofeedback, neurofeedback, and specialized training in ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. She's warm, collaborative, deeply respectful, and she blends science and innovation to trust whole person healing. We're excited to have her today. So, Dr. Lisa Black, it's an honor to have you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Me too. So let's get started. I would love to start just a couple minutes of your journey into, what's led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so my journey is started really young. So at age 16, I decided to become a psychologist. I know a lot of people don't know what they're going to be doing until way later in life, but I really felt that calling at age 16 because I really wanted to understand why people were so horrible to each other. And, like, I had experienced a good amount of bullying in school, and it was always really confusing to me, like what that behavior was about, why people were doing that. And later on in my career, it sums it up: trauma creates trauma, right? Hurt people hurt people. And I really started to understand that, if I could summarize, like, it wasn't the people doing it, right? It wasn't the individual doing it. It was the things that they had experienced and the patterns in their brain that were causing them to do that type of behavior. So therefore, it really wasn't personal, which I think can be helpful, that kind of perspective change. So then I, of course, went the traditional route, got my bachelor's, master's, and then doctorate in psychology, and started my work mostly at UCSD, University of San Diego, California, San Diego. And what I really discovered was, throughout school, particularly like my master's degree, evidence-based practice was very much so on like the top of your list. Like, you don't do it unless it's evidence-based. And as I agree with that fully and wholeheartedly, as like a psychologist and a researcher, sometimes that's not really the full picture. And a lot of things happen in this world that aren't explainable, or that help people that might not help other people. So I really started to get into more of the integrative side of psychology. So that included biofeedback, neurofeedback. That also included things like dance and poetry and storytelling and all kinds of really cool stuff. And some of my favorite stuff that came out of that was like the death and dying process and rituals, and like the importance of these things like community and soul, that really helps your mental health and is very much so outside of evidence-based practice, right? Like CBT and et cetera. So,
no, but it sounds like it's just whole body.
yeah,
Everything.
the whole thing. And people, when they say whole body, a lot of times forget that also means community. Right. That also means the people that surround you and what they're telling you and your experiences from day to day, which often for individuals is work. Right. That's where you're spending a majority of your time with those people. And sometimes those can be the most lovely and close relationships. And sometimes they can be the most horrible.
Yeah.
Really, no, no, me too.
No, it's true. And we mirror, we mirror the people around us, whether we want to or not. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I got into it. I started getting the limitations, hitting the limitations of kind of like a more of a corporate setting, and very much so evidence-based practice, which I still practice, of course. But then I opened my own practices. So I have Sylvia Integrative Health and as well as the Grove Institute. And what we're trying to do with both of those practices is, yes, give traditional psychotherapy, traditional care, but also kind of go outside. What does the person need? Is it ketamine-assisted therapy? Is it biofeedback? Are they just not having enough community? Will meditation work? Then we're trying to get all the tools in our toolbox to really figure out what we need. And that's going to look very different for someone who's 18 or 19 who hasn't had any kind of mental health assistance, or kind of, let's face it, in our communities or in American society, teaching people how to regulate and mental health is kind of like very much so last. We have like things like
I have 3 kids, 21, 17, and 13 at this recording, and I get it. It's like I'm the one as a mom trying to help them as a certified hypnotherapist, but they're like, "Oh, mom, whatever."
Yeah, exactly. They won't listen to you. You're like, I know what I'm talking about. I swear, I'm educated in this. But no, I mean, we have things like, PE, but we don't have a lot of mental health. And I know some schools are working on that change, but I'd rather see individuals educated on how to, like DBT skills, like how to manage their emotions, what emotions are, even identifying emotions, right? Like past happiness, anger, sadness,
Right.
Just like really simple stuff, I think would be life-changing. But
we're taught, but you're so right. We're taught, especially in boys, like, don't feel that.
Don't feel it. Yeah. Yeah. And we live in such a busy society. And I think, like, in my opinion, it's getting a little bit worse about how much pressure we put on our kiddos, like how many sports they're in or what their academics are. And there's not a lot of time for being bored, and which creativity really comes from that. And that different outlook comes from that boredom. And obviously the lack of stress too, right? Because your body gets to rest and you get a chance to hear what your body and mind are trying to say, even if that is boredom. And so,
wow, I love that. Creativity comes from boredom.
Really does. Yeah, it really does. Think about it. Like, you're not going to be creative when you're going. It's in those down times where you're really allowing your body to rest, and think about, allow those things, those unconscious things to kind of bubble up. What could it be? What's another perspective? And you're not just kind of in your patterns, right? Your 9 to 5.
So that would be, I would think like tapping into those different brainwaves, like, the alpha.
Yeah. Totally, which is like, I could nerd out about that for a long time. Like, you're getting into your gamma waves, actually, when you're getting into that creativity. And so we can't spend a lot of time in gamma waves, or we're definitely going to burn our brain out. But there's those really, kind of high amplitude, I like to call them hot waves, right? Where you're going, oh, I get it. And those
how would you burn your brain out with too many?
So a lot of times balance is the number one thing, right? So you can't spend 24 hours in gamma, just like you can't spend 24 hours in delta, right? So like you're going to be running at too high of a rate, too high of a frequency, and that's really going to have a negative effect on your body. You need to be kind of going with all of the waves all of the time, right? And if you're stuck in delta, this is actually what we see a lot of times with our concussion patients. You have that cognitive fog, all of the like tiredness. You can't do in more than a half hour of attention, right? Because you're kind of hurt, the brain's hurt, and you're stuck in this brainwave. Same thing with alpha. Like alpha is a wonderful brainwave to stay in a good portion of the time, but you want to be in that low beta, possibly high beta, depending on what kind of experience you're experiencing. Right. If you're in traffic or you just got cut off, you don't want to be in like a low alpha or a delta, right?
Well, I'm just daydreaming.
And that's what happens. And that's what we see, right? Oh, we're daydreaming, we're doing this, we're doing that. Yeah. So you can really, on one end of the spectrum or another, kind of, for lack of a better word, burn out your brain because you're spending too much time in one setting. And you really need to be balancing and shifting through life. Just like we wouldn't sit all the time.
You say something very important, because I think right now, especially kids and, when I was in my 20s, I was probably operating from just, flight, fright, parasympathetic, probably beta constantly, blah, 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 go to sleep, wake up.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation for, because that's like total not balanced at all, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
How do what daily practices would you, add to someone like that that's coming to you?
Well, it's interesting because there's advice and then there's reality, right? So of course I'm going to say sleep, right? I'm going to say eat right, sleep, exercise, and your body responds very well to patterns. But when you're in your 20s, you don't even know who you are. Your frontal lobe's not fully developed. It's a very developmentally confusing time. And you're just trying to hold on, or at least I was, just trying to hold on and kind of figure it out. And then there's all kinds of other social pressures, at least. This new generation is changing a little bit with like how much they go out or how much they're like going out and partying and things like that. When I was in college, that's what you did, and if I didn't stay out till 3 a.m., I might not have friends or like, the friends that like, are out having fun and socializing. These are the things that you did, right?
Absolutely.
And those are things that are important. They're super important. They're some of my core memories, the funnest times that I've had where we've, eaten burritos at 3 a.m. These are wonderful.
As a Taco Bell's the only thing open right now. Time for Taco Bell. It's 4 a.m.
Exactly. And all the people in the back seat are like, yeah, Taco Bell. Right. These are wonderful core memories. So there's not like a daily thing that I would say, like you must do this or you have to. One piece of advice I would say is try your best to balance. So if, yes, you've stayed out and ate Taco Bell at 3 a.m., your body now needs to kind of repair, right? So you need to make up that sleep. You need to eat healthy for the next couple of days. You need to bring yourself back into balance. It's when we are continuing on any form of out of balance, whether it be, again, very, very low where we're not doing much, or very, very high where we're doing too much. And it's not about staying centered all the time. It's about, it coming out in the wash. And I think if most of us do that, where we have moments of heightened, activity, even if we just go with the seasons, right? And that's like a whole other conversation about like winter is typically for rest. Summer is typically for activity. The earth has its seasons, and so should we, and that might be daily as well. We might get a lot of rest here in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we're very much so in activity, or we might flip it, but we can't start our morning and end our day going, or doing nothing as well. We need that balance.
Right. Well, it sounds a lot like this part is awareness. Now, you mentioned, when people come to you, try to find out if they need biofeedback or neurofeedback or ketamine treatment. How do you diagnose that? And then let's talk about that. I know, initially when I met you talking about these profound like recoveries with ketamine treatments. And I know it's not legal everywhere, but
for the most part in the US it is, right? It's legal, it's a Schedule 3, so you can get it from your pharmacy. And I think that that's a huge misconception, especially a lot. It's been kind of sensationalized and then kind of demonized as well with the, what am I trying to say nicely, is like the kind of, I'm stumbling on my words here, the amount of sensation that we've had around it has been either like it's a really, really good thing. Like we saw this in 2020, like, wow, people are, that's what I'm looking for. Media. Sorry, my brain sometimes just like cuts it out. So the media we've gotten on it like in 2020 was really positive. It was like, wow, this is really great for depression. People are doing it to help them with the pandemic, like, manage it. And then as like more high profile individuals started taking it, and then of course like a couple of incidents of death have occurred, is it's not because of the ketamine, it's because of the circumstances around the ketamine. And so ketamine tends to be an incredibly safe drug if taken as prescribed, right?
It's like anything, right? If
exactly,
or balanced, right?
Can get not dangerous, can get more dangerous if you're definitely doing things you're not supposed to be doing. Like you're not supposed to drive when you're on ketamine, right? Just like you're not supposed to operate heavy equipment on like benzos and painkillers and things like that. So if you take it as prescribed, it's an incredibly safe drug. Ketamine is very unique when you're looking at like the psychedelic realm. Ketamine is very unique in the sense that it kind of has like this dual mechanism that really creates an opening for mental health. So it calms all of those dinosaur brain centers, so like your amygdala and things like that, that really make you fearful. So like those are very on high alert with PTSD, right? Your body is looking for threat. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And it will sometimes make up threat, like, oh, there it is. So like fireworks, for example, it might sound like bombs, but it's not, right? So your body is saying, there it is, we should be scared, and you're reacting as though it is happening, right? So ketamine calms all of those down, but it does an amazing job at increasing some of the cortex. So that's where we talk about the gamma waves. It actually shows that like it increases gamma wave activity, and that really creates a different perspective. And that's really what we want in psychology and mental health, is the person to be able to gain a different perspective. And then, of course, be able to take action on that different perspective, which we'll get into in a second. But the third thing it really does when it comes to the activation is it increases neuroplasticity by increasing dendritic spine formation. So when we think about depression in particular, or really even PTSD or anxiety, a lot of our healthy brain cells are dying, right? So they're dying off, and we're stuck in this pattern that this is what the brain knows. And so we stick with this. We stick with fear, and we stick with energy, not consuming energy. So really saving energy, right? And if I do the same type of behavior over and over, then I reduce the amount of energy my brain uses, and then I know it's safe. And I had a friend tell me this, and I'm sure lots of people have said this statement, but the brain isn't there to make you happy or thrive. It's there to make you safe and conserve energy. And so when we're trying,
it's safe too. Like it's just the familiar.
Well, it's safer, right? It's like I'm still alive, right? Like
I didn't die yet, right?
Right. Therefore, so that's it. It just that's the I'm alive is the threshold, right? And this is what's kept me alive so far, and this is what conserves the most energy. So the brain glucose and everything that we're using, right? Because the brain takes up a lot of energy. So that's its main goal. When we're trying to shift out of that, we need sometimes a little extra help, right? So we need that nice dendritic spine formation, which there's this growth hormones that kind of occur with ketamine that allows those dendritic spines. That then allows you to take hold of a new way of thinking faster.
So this would, let me ask, so that would actually rewire your brain. So rewire.
It does.
So they're not stuck in that loop.
Basically. If you're not stuck in that loop, but I will say this, and this is where I think it can go awry sometimes, is really what I've started to notice is that ketamine or a lot of the psychedelics can really have this beautiful, like life-changing experience. And you can get a ton of insight from it, which is just so yummy and wonderful. But if you don't have the behavioral patterns down to continue that will go back, right? You'll go back into that old way of thinking, that old freeway system. So even if you've started building a new freeway system here and it's better and it's faster and it's wonderful, it makes you more happy. If you're not going on that freeway, it will go, and just disappear and come back here.
Because it likes the familiar, it likes what they thought was safe, right?
Yeah,
so we have to make that new pathway familiar. How do we do that?
So that's where, in my opinion, psychotherapy really comes in. So I do ketamine-assisted therapy just a little bit different than the majority of people. So I looked at some of the protocols, like Spravato protocols, right? Because Big Pharma, as much as we demonize Big Pharma, they're very good at research, right? And so they put a lot of money into it. The research is usually relatively clean. We could get into where it's not clean, but it's relatively clean. And so I looked at the Spravato research, and their protocols to help with depression, especially treatment-resistant depression, was to do it way more than 1 to 3 times, right? So they're usually doing it twice a week for 4 weeks, once a week for 4 weeks, and then every other week for 4 weeks. So I took their protocol and said, well, why don't we do this then, right? A lot of ketamine-assisted therapy is, when you're doing IM or you're doing IV, they get 1 treatment or they get 3 in a row. And then they just kind of are good luck. And the person really does feel better during that time, which is amazing. And it's but that's not what the research is showing. The research is really showing that it needs to happen more. Unfortunately, it's very expensive, right? So if you're getting IV treatments, it's usually $1,200 a shot. It's so you're talking 16 sessions of that. That is only achievable by the very wealthy, right? So it's so we can't do that. There's a limitation there, and not everybody's covered by Spravato because there's limitations again with you have to have treatment-resistant depression, and I know that it would work really well for PTSD. So we do it where we do 1 IM session so that we know that the person is really safe to take.
Wait, what's an IM session?
Oh, good. Thanks for catching me. Sometimes I get caught.
That's okay. We keep it layman's terms. IM session is.
Yeah. This is what happens when you get trapped in academia.
Yeah.
So an IM and an IV session. So IM is intramuscular. It's the shot. And then IVs, and when you think about an IV, you're hooked up in an IV, they inject it into the bag and it gives it to you. Both of those are considered higher dose ketamine treatments. So usually, on average, you're probably getting anywhere from 70 to 120 milligrams of ketamine in your system. And we want to do at least one of those, what they call journey sessions, that are at the higher dose. And again, the dose is very dependent on the person and their sensitivity. But we want to make sure that we get that higher dose so that any issues that might come up with ketamine, if you have undiagnosed sleep apnea, or, I've never seen anybody be allergic to it, but I'm sure there's somebody allergic to it, right? Something that's just kind of out of our control that we wouldn't be able to diagnose even if you had diagnosable heart arrhythmia or something like that. So we want to give you a higher dose to make sure that it's super safe for you to take it home, because most of ours we take it home, and that has mainly to do with access issues. And I'll kind of get into that in a second. So they usually do one of those treatments, and yes, it's $1,200. But then the doc that I work with, Dr. Dansky, prescribes them an at-home prescription, and that is incredibly inexpensive. So usually a month's worth of treatment is about $100 to $120 for that medication.
And what type of is that? Is that a shot as well?
That is a lozenge. So usually it's this little square, or sometimes the rapid dissolve tablets, they're like a little chalky, like yeah, I'm gonna try to like a alpha seltzer. You know how it kind of like explodes. It's the same. It kind of explodes in your mouth, and what you're doing it is sublingually. You're swishing it around your mouth, because if you swallow it, the digestion system basically just like destroys it. And like, I mean, there's a little bit that can get there, like 2 or 3%, but when you swish it in your mouth, it's usually anywhere from like 20 to 30% absorption at that time. But this is the key, is this is a very low dose. So they're going to get, absorption rates are different, but they're going to absorb anywhere from like 15 to maybe 25 milligrams. This is way different from the higher dose. It's like 100 to 120. Right. So we're focused on very, very small doses. You won't fall asleep. You'll still be awake. You'll still be able to talk. You'll still be able to walk. This isn't like, if anybody's, partied on ketamine, this isn't like you're on the floor, in any kind of like situation where you're really, really sedated. But that tiny dose still has all of those beautiful effects that we talked about with the neuroplasticity. It also quiets that amygdala and allows therapy to be much more productive, because the fear centers are off, but your cortex is still on. So unlike like a benzodiazepine that just kind of like takes everything down and people are kind of like checked out, you're not checked out. You're definitely feeling the medicine, but your cortex is still online and still activated. And therefore we get to have those neural pathways be able to be laid down much easier during that time.
So you take the ketamine at home, and then you go into a therapeutic session, like a talk session. Is that what you're saying?
We do.
Right, okay. Because you're not just taking it and then, going to work or something. This is like it's an active kind of, okay, got it.
Exactly. It's very, very active. And my favorite way of doing it is with EMDR. Because EMDR does a fantastic job at doing the exact same thing that ketamine does.
Well, let's explain what EMDR is.
Yes. So it's eye movement desensitization reprocessing. We don't really understand exactly what's happening in the brain. So what we're doing is usually eye movements, what they call bilateral stimulation. So you can do eye movements, you can listen to audio that's bilateral, you can do a tapping. I really like for ketamine, there's these little buzzy tappers that you hold, that go bzz, 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 and we're stimulating bilaterally. And that, again, the research kind of suggests that it's allowing the brain to talk to each other differently. So if you're looking at the left brain or the right brain, stereotypically the right is going to be very emotional and the left is going to be more memory and very logic. And if we get the two parts of the brain to kind of talk to each other, we get a different perspective.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense, because I remember a practical method I heard a doctor talk about one time was when you're experiencing anxiety attack or whatever, take something and just throw it back and forth from your right hand to right hand.
Love that. I love that, right? The other theory that we have, or some of the research shows, is that a lot of it is just distraction. Actually distracting those old patterns. So if you're doing something like throwing a ball back and forth, your brain is going ball, and it allows those other perspectives to come up. That's exactly how I think hypnosis can work, right? Is it's just allowing the brain to take a break. All your protectors, all of your kind of old patterns, you're going to sit over there in the corner just for a second. And then we're going to talk to the other people over here and see if we can get a different perspective. And it's really beautiful when you combine the two, because again, it's very low dose ketamine plus the EMDR. They're doing basically the same thing. They're interacting on the same brain patterns, and like decreasing the amygdala, increasing, cognition, all of that. But then the ketamine's allowing you all those lovely growth hormones and dendritic spine formation. And so they pair just beautifully, in my opinion.
Oh, right? I love this. I love it. It's so they take at home, this lozenge type thing,
Yeah.
switch around their mouth, and then you're having a session. How long does those effects last in the body? Obviously, we're reprogramming the mind, so that'll continue to go on.
Yeah, that's a great question. So like usually the session is an hour to an hour and a half. You'll still feel the effects for 4 to 6 hours after, but nothing that you can't, like, again, walk and talk from. Those higher doses, you're definitely going to feel the effect for several hours after, and probably even into the next day. Like you'll definitely wake up not feeling the effects, but you'll still be kind of under the influence of it. Like all of those really great growth hormone stuff happens for up to 72 hours later, which
Are you
is, again,
suggesting here we are in this growth hormone, change the pathways? You don't want them to go into a negative environment.
correct, which is very difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, when you think about just people living in life and you've got kids and you've got things and you've got to pick them up from soccer practice or whatever, like there's a lot of possibility for negativity, and you are very sensitive during that time. So for the time of treatment, which again, for our individuals, our clients, we're talking like a 3-month time frame. It's life-changing in those 3 months, but you have to be very careful not to continue to just repeat the patterns that you're normally doing. So you have to kind of be more on it. And usually what we tell like spouses, we say the day that they take their medicine and they have it for that day and the next day, they're king or queen. They get whatever they want, no arguing, no anything, during that time, if you could help it as much as possible. If negativity happens during that time, it does tend to affect your body a little bit more. And you get a little bit more sensitive to everything, and everything's kind of like on the surface, which is what we want. We don't want everything trapped in, but you will get more sensitive for those days.
I totally see that. And like your environment is again, it's like the program. So it's even what you watch on TV,
correct,
what you're listening to, not correct, just the person that you're living in the household with.
Yeah, we say like no violent television shows, no anything. Watch like a kid's movie. Watch something that's really lovely and nice. Yeah. Because if you do that, you'll start to notice, ooh, there's a lot of negativity in my life. There's a lot, like the television shows, like oh, I got a phone call from my mom or my dad or something like that, and I'm getting this cringe. I don't want to go to work. You start to notice, ooh, there is a lot of negativity here that I'm exposing myself to on a daily basis. No wonder I'm feeling anxious. No wonder I'm feeling depressed or not safe.
Right. No, right? It's true. Everything. I just watched some scary vampire movie yesterday, and I kept trying to tell myself afterwards, because my mind is so sensitive. There were camera crews, that was pretend blood. I had to. Yeah. Watch this, but I had to like rewire my brain back into that.
Yeah, like I'm safe. I know I can't do any of those. I did hear a nice tip on that though, for if you do that in the future, is to try to find the blooper reels.
Oh.
And then your brain goes, oh, okay. Right. And you can kind of get faster. Instead of trying to convince your brain it's not real, it can actually see, oh, it's not real. I thought that was a good tip.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah. I haven't tried it yet because I can't. I can't even watch the tiniest. I can't. Zombies, anything. I can't do anything.
I didn't even realize it was that. It just surprised me. But anyway.
Yeah. And we've all been there.
Wow. So, our brains are so, they can be stuck, right? We're stuck and like completely unaware. We're just living in this looping like we talked about. But when the awareness is key to start, it sounds like, and then, you do these practices where you pair them with like ketamine or EMDR, hypnosis. Mm-hmm. They have to continue to keep those boundaries. Correct. How long does that take before those are actually set, that new perspective is actually set? Is there a scientific, like 21 days to create a habit or et cetera?
It is like, research really shows 90 days. And I want to clarify, the treatment that I find the most helpful is intense, because we do ketamine still twice a week. We might do it with for at least the first month and sometimes the second month, depending on how bad like the PTSD is, how chronic it is. So we usually do like a session where we do the low dose EMDR, and then they'll do what we call a K meditation at home, still by themselves, where they're focused on the positive things. So EMDR very much, and talk therapy, focus on negative, right? Like, what's your negative cognition? Why is this a problem, et cetera? And we're trying to shift the perspective. But then on their K meditation, we really want them to focus on the positive. So I'll give you an example. Like if a person comes from an alcoholic family and one of their negative cognitions might be, I'm not worthy, right? Or I'm not important. And so we're working on feeling important and working on processing the memories that cause them to feel not important with the ketamine EMDR mix and therapy. And then when they do their at-home K meditation, we're having them think about being worthy or being, whatever it is, right? And so when they're taking that medicine, they are, with their K meditation, usually have the eye shades on and the headphones, and they're going in with the intention of, I'm worthy. And then we see where that goes. And ketamine's going to take you wherever ketamine's going to take you. You really can't go, ketamine, I want to do this today. She's going to be like, that's nice, right? But it will show you different perspectives. And this is what I love so much, because they might come to me and say, okay, Dr. Black, I have, I've always had relationship issues where I just feel like I need to give, and like over give. And that comes from a sense of not being worthy. Like I have to prove my worth. So we're going to be working on that. Here's a memory that I have. And then when they do the K meditation, the ketamine goes, did you not remember this memory and this memory and this memory? And then they bring those to me the next session. So we get a way more uniform perspective of where that thought process comes from. They'll come in and say, like, I haven't thought about this memory for a really long time. This was way locked back in the closet, right? And so that's the memory now we're going to work on and process and get through. So the combo like that, like I said, the ketamine, all those really good growth hormone stuff keeps 48 to 72 hours. If we are taking it twice a week, we're basically in that learning window for a solid month to a solid 2 months.
Great.
That's right.
Great. And you mentioned meditation. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So, and then you're doing all of the other stuff, right? Not watching your television shows, trying to get good sleep, being present with your kids. And if you do that for like 30 to 90 days, that's really where we start to see those really beneficial, solid behavioral changes work. And then you might need like what we call a refresher session or something every 3 months or every year or something like that. Like I have a few that go, you know what, I've gotten back on my old patterns, and we'll do another few sessions. And then they're right back to the patterns that we're working on.
No, I mean, yeah, it's definitely lifestyle. This is not a one and done, or I did it.
Unfortunately.
but I think what the perspective change though is everything, because then you just have that. If you change your perspective and then you continue to live your life that way, you're going to see all kinds of magical things start showing up for you that never existed in your life before, because what do our brains do? They do everything to prove us right. And so if we're focused in on the positive and the lovely stuff, then suddenly those things just start appearing.
Exactly.
So I love it's just a game changer. So what a lot of people are afraid, I go to this terrible traumatic memory and I just don't want to relive it. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it is scary, right? It is. There's no softening that. It is my patients, my clients are some of the bravest people I know. Especially the ones that have gone through not just one thing, right? But really, really as bad as you can imagine multiple times. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks looking at it. It does. But when you're brave and you process it, all of that weight finally goes away. Right. It really starts to shift, and then you can make meaning out of it. If that feels correct, like I understand what I learned from this, not that in any way, shape or form, individuals are at fault, especially for some things happening to them. But creating some meaning and understanding of like how it helped, like the stuff that I went through, it helps me be a better psychologist. It helps me be a better human being. It helps me be compassionate towards individuals and understanding like why they're doing things. So in essence, it makes my life a lot easier. But is it easy? No, it's horrible. It's horrible. It's not fun. But it is the kind of the best form of self-care and self-love that I think that you can give yourself. But you do kind of have to be ready and prep for looking at those hard things.
Yeah, no, I agree. But the release is, either that you live in horror and pain for decades, like some of us have. And then when you release it, you kind of walk through that wall.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, why didn't I do this like 1,000 years ago? Wow. But it's also from my experience with the hypnotherapy, it's not what happened, but it's the belief that we formed about ourselves from that experience that we keep looking for proof of over and over. Like, I'm not the worthy, I'm not, alcohol was more important to my parents than me, or, something that we formed. And so I don't know if we always necessarily have to go back to the traumatic event. We just have to go back to the beliefs that we formed.
Yep.
Right.
Yep,
so they don't always necessarily have to look back at those awful things.
You don't have to look at
it. And also, we don't always have to have something horrible happen to us. I mean, it's just beliefs that we form about ourselves that, that create the anxiety and the depression and everything else too.
Yeah, I actually think, in my opinion, those ones are harder to get over. Right? The singular things, if it's truly just a singular thing, we can focus on that singular thing and move through it. If it's a message that you've been told or have understood for 20, 30, 50 years, that's going to be a little bit harder. And it's not like, oh, this one terrible event like abuse happened. It's the tiny little, you're not worthy. This is how I'm showing you you're not worthy, over a couple of decades. It's extremely hard to move through. What I like to do is I like to just focus on the first memory and the worst memory associated with the belief. So then that way we don't have to go through the whole thing, right? But that our body has an anchor to at least, like, this is the first example of when this came in, and this is the worst example of when this came in. So then we get a nice kind of domino effect typically of like, oh, so then all of this other stuff doesn't count. Right. Yeah. All of this other stuff falls over.
We don't need to relive all that, right? We just need to unravel I feel like a yarn, right? A ball of yarn pulling.
Exactly. Like, this is where the beliefs stem from. This is the worst example of it. If I can process these two, more than likely all the other stuff's going to kind of start to fall into place. But you do need to give your body, in my opinion, an example. Right. It doesn't necessarily need to be the worst of the worst, but sometimes it is more beneficial or faster to look at the one that was the worst so that we can process that one and move the temperature down on that one. Otherwise, the body goes, yeah, that's nice, but it's still true over here. Still true over here. Right. And so it's like, if we think about, first and worst, it's like, yeah, all of the other stuff can kind of come into line. So we can't necessarily just bypass it, right? And we see sometimes when people do try to bypass it, and that could be, you try to spiritually bypass it, you try to mentally bypass it, you try to physically bypass it. Like, you can't bypass it, and all systems need to be involved. You can't just process it mentally. You need to process it spiritually, physically, like it needs to, all of it, right? And then that ends up being also community. Because once you processed it, you'll lose friends, right? People will start to try to keep you stuck in your old ways, right? Because they're used to you being in this way. And a lot of shifting with community needs to occur as well. So the healing process is kind of all of it. It's not just one.
Well, I like it because though it's a North Star, so, like the community that you become part of.
Yeah.
Is great. It's just the letting go. You're right. I mean, this is such a wonderful conversation. And, I took this healing journey. Well, I've always, the anxiety, I thought I had to manage it until I realized I didn't have to manage it. I had to just let it go, and I don't have it anymore. I was like, oh wow, wait, this is a whole different perspective that I was thinking.
Exactly.
But but I think about all the hypnotherapy that I've had to, because I'm now certified, but I have had done, but over and over and over, and then another issue, and then this came, and then this, and then just the unraveling of it all, like, just gave me so much peace. So if anyone's listening, you can have peace and joy and happiness for sure in your life. Absolutely.
Absolutely you can, but it is hard work, right? And there's no bypassing. Through it. No going around it.
Yeah, no, my best quote is, the only way through it is through it. So
right. And you do have to be brave enough to go through it, or motivated enough, right? Things have to be horrible enough or bad enough in order for that motivation to occur. And for some people, it just isn't.
Well, no, that's why, like, the parent wants to send the kid to prac. They're like, because they're not actually saying yes to it. It's someone else telling them.
And then it won't work, right? Because then all the other stuff doesn't. So you just end up getting, like, again, trying to bypass it by one body system isn't the way that we're going to create that change.
Well, Dr. Lisa Black, this has been an honor, and very, very informative. And where can our listeners find you?
So you can find me several places, but my main website is drlisablack.com. I also the Grove Institute, so it's thegroveIPI.com, as well as Sylvie Integrative Health.com. All of those are my practices, so you can find me through any of those. If you just send a message, happy to collaborate. Always love to do these things and educate. I find them so fun. So definitely ask me questions and come find me.
Do you do Zoom practice at all, or do they have to physically be with you with the ketamine?
No, most of actually it is Zoom. The only ones that we do in person are our retreats. And so we do intensives as well, which I think a lot of people can benefit from, because you're cramming that, like, 15 hours of therapy that usually takes 12 weeks into one weekend. And so that can be a profound shift. So we will do those ones in person or online, but no, everything is pretty flexible. And again, it's access, right? I wanted to build practices that give access and not take away access.
Excellent. That's excellent. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And anybody listening, please share this, subscribe, and come back for more. Thank you, Dr. Black. It's been a pleasure.